Good. All right, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first part of our Transformational Care series. I'm joined tonight by my colleagues who will introduce themselves this evening. So just starting with on my left.
Hello, I'm Monica Woodhouse, the founder and executive director of Give a Child a Family Africa.
Good evening, I'm Maria Höfner and I'm doing human resources and responsible for fundraising in the Netherlands.
And my name is Anna-Karin Ernstedt and I'm the program analyst at DCF right now.
Thank you, guys. I'm Steve Wetton, Director of Special Programs and your host for this evening. So without much further ado, I think we should get started. And the first question is for Maria. You are the winner.
Yes.
So Maria, when this is a transformational care series, so I suppose one of the first questions is, what do we mean by transformational care?
That is moving from, if you look at the word transformation in the total, it's really like a whole quite radical change from the one side to the other. So if you look at transformational care, that is really moving from what we call institutional care towards community-based care. And in our type of world, obviously, it has to do with children. So that's basically where we're talking about, look at all the aspects around how to go about transformational care, moving children, no longer having them in an institution, but having care for them in a family.
Okay, so that's really about transforming the way that we care for children.
Yes.
Okay, that's right. So that's really good. So thank you, Maria, for that. And Monica, the next question is for you. Why is transformational care needed?
Yeah, when you look at the harmful effect of institutional living for children, you know, there's between 5 to 6 million children that, according to a study in 2020 that was done, where there were the 5 to 6 million children are in institutional care at this point, at that point in time. And institutional care, if you really understand it, is harmful for children, in that babies that are separated from their mothers, I mean, there's the whole thing of the brain development. Within the first 3 years of a child's brain, it grows to its fullest. But then within 6 months, it's already kind of fully developed, but it's still growing. It's a muscle. So it means that a child who is brought up in an institution gets into this regimented lifestyle, not where there's responsive nurture care. You know, when a child cries, when you're at home, and I mean, I've got a grandchild at home at the moment when that child cries, what happens? Mother picks up and feeds, or mother picks up and changes nappies. In an institution, it's all regimented. It's basically certain times where you eat, certain times within 30 minutes, you've got to quickly feed 30 children. You know, and then you've got to go into, you know, now it's time to change everyone's nappy, and now it's time to wash everyone's hands, you know, so it becomes this really regimented and unresponsive caregiving for children. So it really basically boils down to that there's often irreparable damage that is done for children in that situation. And so babies are born into that. And there's also the aspect of a lack of that, you know, when you have this responsive caregiving, you know, you Google and you gargle and you do all sorts of things with a child, and they imitate you, you imitate them. And that develops a powerful attachment with that child, which then in turn creates space for relationships. It creates space for friendship. everything. It's like for life, you know, that attachment. So what basically it becomes a building block for societal healthy societies. And I think that's where the whole institutional care, you know, we think it's very cute when little babies come running to you and they're up in arms and want to hug you, but it actually shows that there's a desperate need, and it's got nothing to do with being cute. It's actually really a cry for attention and love and that sort of thing. And often we'll even here, as much as we try to make it not so institutional, we still have it, you know, the institutional type of living here where they say, oh, your kids are so good, you know, when actually they really just have to be quiet because there's 29 others or 30 others that are sort of, you know, going for the help. So I really think it's that whole thing of that lack of stimulation. It's got nothing to do with a child being good. It's all got to do about the lack of stimulation and that often in a society or in institutional. And often they're separated, siblings are separated when it comes to institutions. They put them, often children are placed age-wise. Even here we've had that, you know, where you have to have certain ages, you have to separate them. And as much as there's also just that, there's just no sense of belonging. You know, who do they belong to? They're a caregiver. Oh, but you know, she's the mommy for a season, and then it's someone else comes in and things like that. And so you get, you know, this whole aspect of that sense of belonging is missing. And when they go into community, and then when they 18, 21, then they're told, now you can adult, now you're an adult, now you must go out and care for yourself and be able to do that. And I think, you know, that's that whole thing of what are we training these children to grow up into? And often they have to cope with things like, you know, they'll often say that sex trafficking, prostitution, suicide are all things are quite normal for children who are care leavers. And that whole rotational, the revolving door, you know, where children land up coming out and going in and coming out and just not being able to cope with outside, because you also have this thing of everyone's telling you what to do. I mean, I remember even with one of our foster children, they had gone into a home and they'd never seen a raw potato. And so they were thinking this was some sort of a ball to play with. So, yeah, so there's lots of aspects that are damaging as far as that is concerned. And so I just think that is something that we need to look at. What is the driving force behind institutional care? I mean, there's poverty, ethnicity, disability. You know, children with disabilities are often also placed in institutions when actually they would thrive in a family. So there's very many reasons why institutional care just isn't the right place for children.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Monica. And then, so building on that, the next question is going to be for Anna Karen for AK. So how long have we known about the effects of institutional care? I mean, is this a new thing? Is this something we're just finding out about? Or how long have we known?
Not at all. It's something that has been known since the 1930s. It's like 90 years. And the first wave of research that was done was between the 1930s and 1950s. And then the researchers were looking at the cognitive development of the children, which is then it's so hard to explain cognitive. It's more like how do you perceive things, how do you remember things, how do you learn things, all that kind of stuff. And what was shown in that research already then was that many of these children had a lower IQ and many had a language delay. And this kind of research has been ongoing till the modern day, till today. And it's still pointing to the same direction, which is, I mean, it's a global, what can we call it? It's a global
phenomena.
Yeah, that residential care or a children's home is actually damaging.
Okay, so what's important is that it's not only just for one type of child, it's not only for one area,
Yeah.
it's not one geographical location.
No, it's the global.
Okay.
So research has been done all over the place, all over the world, and the outcome is very similar.
Okay, and that really focuses on the child's ability to develop, you know.
So what is clear is that the child doesn't only need physical care. It is also what you're saying, Monica, the stimulation, the everything else that the child needs, and especially the young children, responsive caregiving, nurturing caregiving, one by one. So and talking about families, it's like the same people all the time. In an institution, you have people working. They do come and go. They can resign, they go on leave, so they're not constant. They're working shifts. Yes, in a family, it can be people working shifts, people are coming and going, but not in the same way. It's not one constant person, which makes it very insecure and unsafe for children in many ways.
And I think going back to what Monica was talking about, just in terms of the responsive caregiving, I think that is quite important in terms of what you're saying as well. What research is showing us is that the lack of that responsive caregiving leads to cognitive delays, it leads to, and that in turn goes back to Monica's point around people struggling to function in society after they leave, because some of the skills that they have just aren't there, they're just not developed.
And exactly, and it's for a lifetime. Some people have to live with this for the rest of their life.
And sometimes the disabilities that become apparent through that time, that child is then disabled or then given medication to kind of, because, you know, a lot of they do self-gratifying sort of motions. If they're lying in a cot, for example, they'll hit themselves against something or slap their hands or do something, and then they perceive to be sort of like, oh, there's a disability here. When actually it's the issue is the fact that they landed up in the institution without stimulation.
Yeah, and like if it's a small child, then like the first 1,000 days, as you were talking about, that's when you learn to trust. That's when you learn to love. That's, you know, those things that comes naturally in most families, which doesn't happen here in the same way. Or here, then I mean, a children's home or orphanage or whatever you want to call it.
So I think the underlying point here is also around it's that stimulation that is really the key part of it, and that's institutions lack that ability to replicate what the family is doing, what is naturally happening in a family. So if we're talking about, thank you, AK. If we're talking about institutions, and then the process of doing away with institutions is a very long word that we always stumble over, but I will give it a good go. Deinstitutionalization.
Yeah, well done.
What is deinstitutionalization? And the question is for you, Maria.
Thanks, Steve. That is the systematic process. So we were talking before about transformational care, which is like your bigger picture, and then how do you do that? How do you go from an institutional care to family-based care? This is then your deinstitutionalization. So the whole formatting of, you have this institution, you cannot just close the door and stop with that. So you need to have systems in place in your community. You have to meet with your stakeholders, everyone around that is involved in community life and taking care of children and families, and then that whole system working to it. So it's work hand in hand. You can't just close the door with the institution and then, okay, we don't do that anymore. It is a whole process that you have to walk through.
So, Real, I'd like to just follow up a little bit on that. So closing our doors, does not then necessarily help all the children, does it? It's a system that needs to change.
Yeah.
So if I understand it correctly, deinstitutionalization is not just one place. It is about transforming, if I can latch onto that with the transformational side. So it's about transforming the way that we care for children. out away from an institution and into what are the alternative,
Exactly. So focus on working with the families in the community, rather preventing is better than cure. So why not rather see where there is children at risk, families at risk, walk a path with them, work with them in the communities to prevent the children have to be removed. Because what we said as well, it is harmful because it's not only the child is removed from the parents, it is again from the whole, it's from the family, it is from the neighborhoods, it doesn't have its own friends, it is away from the school that they are at, and so many, so it is so much more. And that's why the best is to leave the child where it is, and rather, obviously, if it's a harmful situation, you have to revisit and find preferably another family, even above an institution. But try to work with the child in the place where the child is, and work with the whole family, because it's not just about the child. If a child is at risk, it means there is a problem or an issue with the family, with the community, where the place where the child is based.
Okay, so my key takeaway from that is that it is the deinstitutionalization process is more than just about the center. It is a lot. There are a lot of work needs to be done within the community, within families, within structures and systems. So deinstitutionalization encompasses far more. It's not just closing a center.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's very important.
Yeah.
So thank you, Maria, for that. So AK, the next one is for you, and this is something we hear, I think, quite a lot. Is but your center is so lovely. We have visitors, people come, but why do you want to close? Your center is so lovely.
Yeah, we have heard that a lot of times. But, I mean, our child and youth care center, as we call it here, is not a family, can never be a family. And we have said many reasons already. So it doesn't matter, it can never ever replace a stable, nurturing, loving family. It does not work. And the longer a child is at an institution, the more harmed they are, or damaged, if I can say so. And I mean, as we said, they have to live with it for a lifetime. Many of those things that's never developed, it's not going to develop. And Monica, you were saying before that it was 5 to 6 million children in institutions all over the world. And that is like a small country.
I know.
I was looking at it because I don't think anybody really knows how many children are really in institutions.
Data.
Yes, and another number that comes up a lot is 2.7 million, which is less. So I was looking at a country with 2.7 million people, and then I came to Europe and it's Lithuania. 2.7. So pretend now that all are children in the whole country and all live in institutions. I mean, that's scary.
That is quite a frightening. That's a frightening statistic. I mean, that's a lot of children. That's a lot of care. I think that we don't understand the scale of it because, as you said, it's scarce. The data is scarce. It's not well collected.
And if we want to look for a country in Africa, I could see Gambia at 2.4 million. So it's almost to take it closer to us.
Or like one heard in days gone by with HIV, it was going to be 4.2 million, and then it was a Durban, the whole city of Durban, for example.
Exactly.
So we would have to have a city of Durban to house 4.2 million orphans,
And then going back to that 2.7, because that's a number that often comes up.
Yes.
Then it is estimated that 80% of these children, maybe the same with 5 to 6 million, but 80% of these children have at least one living parent. So they are not orphans. So we are sitting with lots of children that has parents. And if many of these parents could actually take care of their own children, if they just got the right support. So again, we come into preventative work.
So we go back to what Maria was saying.
Exactly. So I just want to link these to a few things that has not been mentioned. Lots of things have been mentioned already, but Maria, you said that the children are taken away from their families, from their siblings, from their friends, from school, which means that their social network doesn't exist anymore. Because many of these people, they lose contact with them. They don't, especially the children that are living for a long time in institutions, they have no one. Because they lost all the connection, which should have been there, because that's what we need. In the future, they're growing up, they're moving out, they're adults now, but they have no network. Because we remember ourselves, the first job we get, for example, is from a friend's dad or mom, you know, that's for me, probably for the same for you. I mean, and a child that has lived in an institution for long, they have no idea what family life is. They can't cook, they don't know anything about finances. One day they're going to raise their own children, but they don't know how to do because they have no role models. Because a childcare worker in an institution is not the same as a parent. And they have less opportunities. Again, in institution, you are not free to do things in the community or different community activities. You don't have the same chance to travel. There's lots of things you can't do.
You can't go with a friend home after school, for example, but normal is for children.
So again, you're deprived of all the normal things that children should have.
And I think, you know, things like volunteering for kids, I mean, that's how many people, many of us have started doing things you start by volunteering. And you learn sort of a bit about work life and that kind of thing through those things.
For example.
But the children can't because they are, you know, that's sort of a closed door for them. Those things that we take for granted.
Exactly.
Don't work like
and another thing that they are much more vulnerable for exploitation and for different kind of abuse, because what you said, Monica, they don't know the rights. They don't know to take their own initiatives because they've always been told what to do. So you just listen and you do. That makes anyone vulnerable.
Because that's when you're behaving well. Is when you listen and do whatever someone tells you to do. Then you're being a good person. You know, there's a performance aspect to it. You know?
And I think also, the aspect of what you said before, children are running to you because they are in need of that love and care. But at the same time, there is a danger in that because in an institution, it's still within a safe and secure environment when they do it. But now they have to go out. And that is the reference, like, okay, you can just walk to, and everyone is nice and friendly. Whereas normally a child automatically, if there's a stranger, your own child, they're gonna stand behind you if they see a stranger. That is natural behavior for a child. They're not running. I mean, if you have a small child in your house and it's somebody visiting, they're not running to that. So also in that sense, there is a danger when the kids are going out.
Well, that's why teenage pregnancy or sort of young mothers also develop from that, because what happens is that when you leave the children's home, you don't have those coping mechanisms. You get a man telling you, oh, I love you and I'm going to take care of you, you know, and then you'll end up falling pregnant and you know, and then next thing, because I remember when I used to work at the children's home, that the statistic was that 99% of their parents had been in children's homes.
So revolving.
So that whole thing of that cycle just continues, and it has to be broken in this, and that's where the deinstitutionalization comes in.
Just one more thing, going back to what you said, Maria, that it might be safe and secure here where we are, but statistics points and research points to that it's not safe in an institution for children. Many have been sexually abused in different ways, emotionally, physically, and have been really been very harmful for them also. Yes.
So I think what we can take from this is we understand that institutions are harmful to children, okay? But something that comes up that people ask sometimes, and Monica, and I'm going to give this one over to you, is we also hear quite rightly, but families are harmful, but families also can also be harmful.
I mean, that is why, I mean, we believe in families and we believe in strengthening the families and doing preventative work with the families and really setting the families up for success. Because I think, you know, having worked in a children's home, I'll never forget. I mean, even here, a mother or a father is always the mother and a father. Doesn't matter how bad they've been, no matter what they've done. So it's our responsibility, the gatekeepers of communities, to make sure that children and those families are cared for. And I mean, that's one of our whole slogan is the whole thing, children in secure families. It's about ensuring that all families are secure. And so that is why we are working so hard at preventative work. We've talked about prevention being better than cure. And it really is about making sure that we are really just pushing that agenda with regards to that. And so I was going to say that also the cost of care in institutions is 90% less in a family than what it is in an institution. So even there, we would benefit so much from the fact that we have children in families, because there will be a financial, it'll be the taxes. I mean, I was listening today and listening to how much it costs to just raise a child, for example, in our South African community. But in our prisons and institution there, just the food costs 10,800 rand, which the taxpayers are paying for. And then added to that, all the other, they said it can go up to 16,000. And that's having children or people in institutions. And so, yeah, we are here to really want to make a difference in these children's lives. It is our passion to make sure that we can get these children, never mind our own children out, but also look at getting other children out, and even children in Africa, to really promote deinstitutionalization. And that's what we want to see. We want to make a difference.
Thank you, Monica. I think to cover this again, let's say, the transformational care, realistically for us, I think what it means for us is moving away from an institution-based system, right, where we are proponents of the kids should be in families. And the way that we do that, you'll have to join into a couple of other sessions to find out completely how we do that. We'll keep you on the hook a bit, but really transformational care is, in a nutshell, that's what it is. It's transforming the system of care that we have from an institution-based one into a family-based model. That's what GCF is standing for. I think that's what we mean by transformational care. So I would like to just thank everyone that's joined. I'd like to thank my colleagues. I will check if there's any questions from behind, and we'd ask for you to please join us for part 2 of this, which will be on Wednesday the 30th, and its title will be Transformational Care and Give a Child a Family. So not just a general transformational care, we'll be talking about what does transformational care mean for Give a Child a Family.
Maybe to say that it's 30th of November.
30th of November, thank you. So thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for being part of this. Thank you for everyone for joining in, and tune in again on Wednesday, the 30th of November. Thank you, AK, for part 2. Thank you, and I hope that you have a good evening.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye, everybody.